to get started tonight. We have 5 really great docs that are here to give us their expertise and experience currently in the field. So if you just want to have the 5 doctors come up, we have chairs for you up here. It's just going to be panel style. So we'll have them come up and sit down, and then we'll get going here. While we're doing that, we also just want to thank our sponsors here for coming out. This wouldn't be possible without them. So make sure you swing by this table up here, talk to them during or after the meeting. They can provide some really good resources for you all. All right, I'm going to grab an extra mic over here so we can pass this around. Basically how this is looking, it's just a round table, okay? It's just kind of an open forum discussion. You can fire away questions. I have some kind of just baseline questions, kind of get the ball rolling for them, but these docs are here really just to answer and give you all insight to what's it like 2025 in the dental field. They all come from different backgrounds, and they'll kind of describe where they're at currently and where they came from, and then from there, we'll kind of open it up to learn more. So let me turn this mic on and we'll get started. All right, so the first just question so we can kind of get a feel for who we have here is if you all could just give your name, what dental school you went to, and then currently where you practice, and kind of, yeah, just the gist of where you're practicing right now.
Chris Nichols, graduated from Louisville in 2017. Grew up and practicing currently in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Right now we've got 7 offices kind of around that area. Work a lot with Dr. Proctor here as a partner, and yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan White. I would practice in town, Eagle Creek Dental here in Lexington, Kentucky. Went to UK, and what was the other one?
Yeah, just a little bit about your practice, how long it's been established.
Okay, so I graduated just 2 years ago, and so I'm a fairly new practice owner. This industry is actually a second career for me, but yeah, I've owned it for 2 years now, and that practice had been there for like 30 plus years. So I kind of came into a practice that needed a good kickstart.
Hello, I'm Sarah Proctor. Graduated from UK in 07. I live in E-Town and work around that area with Chris. We have 7 practices. I've done a little bit of different things. I've been an associate, I did a startup, I worked for DSO. So feel free to ask me about the different ways of practice.
I'm Alicia Patel. I graduated from UK undergrad and dental school, and in 2012 I actually did a residency program in San Francisco afterwards as a AEGD, so I just went the general practice route. I stuck around for 6 years, and then I moved back closer to home to be closer to family and opened my own practice, a startup in 2018 in the Hamburg area, and it's been lovely and learning since.
Hi, my name is Ricky Farmer. I went to dental school at the University of Louisville in the 1900s and graduated in 03. Kevin sent me a flyer on this. He said, we're going to do this panel. And what he described is like several dentists, different stages of the career, and I just said, dude, just tell me now. Am I the only guy on the panel? He said, yeah, I think so. So that's where I said. Anyway, graduated in 03 from UL. I'm in Somerset, Kentucky, went back home straight out of school, started practice startup, and we're in our 23rd year, late 24th year.
I figured. Awesome, appreciate it. So the next thing we kind of want to hear, if you all could just give a brief description of kind of what a day-to-day life of your current practice setup is, as far as how many operatories you're working out of, what's your staff size, what are kind of just the general procedures, or kind of, just things that you would see, how many days a week are you currently practicing, things like that, just to give us kind of a general overview of what your current practicing life looks like.
Yeah, so in Somerset, I did a pretty major expansion about 6 years ago. We built a pretty large footprint, so currently at 13 treatment ops. I have 3 dentists, staff of about 20. with capacity to add a bit more, and they're gonna build out. So that's where we're at. We're typically 5 days a week, and maybe a match of who's there a particular day. We are comprehensive practice. We refer out very little, so it's a really nice team approach to be able to offer that to patients. And we see a wide variety of patients, from newborns to, I think, patient is 103. She's doing great. She's kind of a character, but that's kind of us. So from a day-to-day basis, I would say from a comprehensive care, just to use, I guess, an example, it could be implant surgeries, perio surgeries. We did some crown and bridge, set endo. You name it. I do like that about our schedule. If you look at on our schedule, we use this off. You look at it, it looks like skills because it's all different colors. But that's, to me, that makes for a really exciting day. We're never really stuck in it. That's us.
On the other side of things, I am five ops. I have 2 hygienists, 2 assistants, 2 front desk, 1 remote employee, 6 office mascots, and a horse and a dog, I think. And the office mascots and the horse and the dog all belong to everyone else but me. But I work 4 days a week. It is full of women and lots of energy, and it's a variety of things. I refer some to molar endo, and I don't quite place implants yet, but I would love to get into that again, since when you do a startup, things are just really expensive. So you can't really buy everything at once. Outside of that, I would say that I built a really pretty office, and that's the most thing I like about my office.
So we do own the 7 practices. The one I practice in the majority of the time is in Bardstown. Bought it about a year ago. It is primarily Medicaid. We have 10 ops. I've got 1 associate that runs 2 columns, and then we do assisted hygiene. 13 total employees, I believe. I've always liked fast-paced dentistry. I'm somebody, if I'm gonna be at work, I wanna be like crazy busy. So I generally run 4 my own columns, sometimes 5. Medicaid is, there's lots of opportunities. It's always worked well for me. It just kind of suits what I like to do. We're comprehensive. Barely refer out anything. For one, there's really nowhere to refer most of the patients. But I like doing a little bit of everything, and how it's different each day is very different. We do a lot of implants, molar endo, full mouth extractions, dentures, pretty much anything.
Cool, hi guys. So currently I'm running about 8 ops, 3 hygiene, 2 restorative, and 1 like limited crown seat kind of thing. Do a lot of full mouth extractions, CBDs to overdenture, implant type stuff. Crown bridge, typical stuff like that. I would say for me, we have about 10 people on staff right now. Bring on another dentist. Some of you guys might know him, Clay Sizemore. He's going to work with me in June. So kind of building out the first associate there, and he's going to do great. He actually externed with us this last summer. So, what was another question?
Yeah, just basically the size, procedures.
Size, procedures, yeah, I mean, that's all bread and butter, and then we're doing implants over dentures. I have an endodontist and a oral surgeon that kind of partner with me on cases, and we try to keep a lot of it in-house. I'm really big on digital dentistry and AI. So a lot of my systems and how I do things are targeted to that. I don't know if you guys have heard of Mod Dentistry, I'm a big fan, and they're down in Miami and in Charleston. But Mod Dentistry, I believe, is going to be pushing kind of the future of dentistry in a way, and more so from like system processes. Like you could extract teeth without any you could do the pre-scan that day, extract the teeth, print the teeth, seed the teeth within 3 hours. And it's just like a whole nother game. And they're doing it, even edentulous patients coming in, still doing it like 2 or 3 hours. So there's just new systems that are out there now that the technology you can use greatly expedites your ability to see more patients quicker. That's all kind of the game.
So, you know, and I think that's the cool thing about dentistry is all the different options you have as far as your day-to-day and what you enjoy doing. Right now, I'm practicing about 3 days a week, using the extra 2 or 3 days a week to either do selectively bigger cases or training younger dentists or taking care of the business side of things. Right now, we've got about 110 employees running about 75 ops. So the HR aspect and the staff management is, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. Again, I think that's the cool thing about dentistry is you can kind of pick and choose what you enjoy doing, where's your time best spent. But yeah.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. Just to get into some of the general questions we have before you open it up for everyone. Thinking from the perspective, I know for some of you all it's been longer than others, what would you say you wish they would have taught you in dental school specifically that could have maybe accelerated where you're at now, where you're headed?
I think the big thing is just getting out and not being scared. I think I can speak for all of us. Like you get out of school and you really don't know a whole lot, especially I think where we're all sitting now is like, I feel exponentially smarter, but
Still don't know a lot.
yeah, we still don't know much. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a good person and try to treat people right, the rest takes care of itself. If you're good to your staff, and you're good to your patients, and you're good to, like, people can see get out and make mistakes and find mentors and learn and ask questions. I think it's been helpful to me. People you graduate with, people older or younger, but finding the networks that people you respect that have questions you need answers to. And again, be annoying. Do what you enjoy doing. That's good.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of know enough to be dangerous and then surround yourself with a really good team. I mean, that's really the game. That's, I think, what greatly can increase where you're going in dentistry. I think, to his point, if you get around somebody that you kind of tell them their dream and they shoot it down, you just need to kind of like exit left, okay? Because a lot of people don't dream big enough, and that's honestly the problem. Like, come on now, couple more ops, man. I think people only know what they know, and they only know their experience. So if you talk to me, or you talk to another sole owner, practice owner, you know, they're going to think that they're the bee's knees, and here's what I'm doing, look at all this, and all that stuff, and that's all good and well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's like industry standard. Like for me, I don't know, I want everybody to turn around. You see this man John Harris back here? He's not very strong, by the way. I am a product of what he does, and I am where I am because of that. And he basically, I wouldn't have got a practice because of that. I'm pretty sure. So having the team around you, not only, you know, we were just talking here about having a network and having those relationships early, they really do help because there are people who maybe if you just took a cold call, they wouldn't have taken your deal. But if you had some in-grounds and you had somebody who was a really solid individual around you, speaking for you, you know, a lot more can happen very quickly. And surrounding yourself with those people and just knowing enough to be dangerous and then staying in your lane, the rest of it, you'll be good to go.
I mean, I would basically say the same thing. Right out of school, there's gonna be those things that you're a little nervous to tackle, but if you surround yourself with good mentors and, you know, I wouldn't shy away from the things that make you a little bit uncomfortable. That's the time to try things and grow and push yourself just a little bit outside your comfort zone, you know, enough so that you can expand on your skills. But that's the time right out of school.
I'm gonna try to think outside the box for a second, because I believe in a good network, but, I also believe that school does a pretty decent job at preparing you for clinical things, like your margin should be this many millimeters and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like there's a lot of outside of the box things, business aspect of things that it doesn't prepare you for. And I'm just gonna give some brief examples, like what a production and collection report actually means for an office, and what that means for you if you're trying to buy into an office. I also feel like what a fair compensation would be as an associate versus an owner. You know, sometimes at least right now, we're living in a world where maybe renting makes more sense than buying a home. The same thing could be said for being an associate versus being an owner. There's a lot of risks, responsibilities, liabilities, the headaches, the non-headaches, the things. He takes 2 or 3 days for 75 to 100 employees. I need a day and a half, and I don't even have nearly as many people, but the headaches are still there. It's just different. Do you have to plunge the toilet? Do you need a maintenance man? Whatever it may be, you're doing all of that. I also think that the one thing that most people isn't taught very well is the psychology of people. You deal with that all day, every day. It's the patient who dumps on you, it's the employee that dumps on you, it's your own personal life and whether you're bringing it to the table. There's a lot to manage, and at the end of the day, it's not to scare you, but it's a lot of things that we're just not prepared for in your day-to-day. And on top of that, graduating dental school, we're just worried about our 2 millimeter margin, So, I think at the end of the day, I'm just gonna say this point blank, if you're worried about your margin, you have a lot, don't worry about it, your margin's just fine.
Yeah, patients don't give a shit
No,
about
they
it.
don't.
No.
Yeah, let's go. They're not gonna know.
And I would echo a lot of that too. So in my particular situation, when I was in dental school, I knew by basically the end of my second year that I wanted to go into private practice for myself. And so coming through dental school, I felt clinically adequate's not the right word, because I still don't feel clinically adequate. And I challenge you to never feel clinically adequate. Always push yourself. That being said, I felt like clinically I was okay getting out of dental school. What I really could have used through dental school was practice management, business management, financial strategies. Ended up having to get that on my own, a 2-year program out in Scottsdale, Arizona. I flew back out in there, and that was an extra time spent, basically went back to school. I could have used that personally, but once again, what you're seeing and you're hearing this, and you guys, once you get back in touch with all your colleagues when you graduate within 2 years, there's a ton of variety in the profession. So what may look like for me may look different, but for me specifically, that would have been my number one thing that I would have missed out on. Because we had one practice management course in dental school. What was our 3rd or 4th year? It was fun. It was great. But that was it. That was it. I would have liked to have had an extra semester with just tax planning. So I would know exactly what accounting I need to talk about. Bank strategies. When you're operating the practice and you look at that, and you are the HR department, and those are the things that you're going to have to tackle and either hire someone to do or get a grip on. The other thing I would feel like that is people management, including self-care, taking care of yourself, being able to balance everything. If you're 100% in the practice in the daily life when you walk out the door and it's on your shoulders, it's never really left alone. It's always there. You're always responsible. I feel like always responsible for the livelihood of the 20 people who care enough to wear my logo every day. And their spouses, their children, how are they feel supported? Do they feel like they're growing? Do they feel like they're vindicated? Or do they feel like they're appreciated? And it sometimes becomes counseling. It really does. And to sit in the office, it happens on a weekly basis. Someone will come in and want to talk about life. Has nothing to do with dentistry or the quad skill they just did. But it's, hey, I'm having an issue with this. And then it's people management. And that's a whole other hour and a half discussion. But that for me would have been very beneficial. The business management side of it, and just, I don't know if there's a course for it, you may have it now, but staff relationships and life balancing. That would be super helpful. You can get it. It might not be in dental school. Maybe through a church or an outreach community or a self-help group or a friend group or business strategy management or a weekend course. But I didn't get it in dental school.
Awesome, appreciate it. Our next question here is more geared towards our fourth years in the room, but also all our rising students. I know, at least for me, and I know some of my classmates, thinking about going from here at UK where we see 2 patients a day, half the time one of them doesn't show up, to going out to the real world and seeing some of your all's schedules. How does it look realistically? How long does it take to ramp up to that level? And what kind of pitfalls or kind of advice can you give on increasing your speed and gaining confidence so you can get up to that level?
It's a great question. I'll tell you how I personally did it. So keep in mind, when I started, I went to practice from scratch, brick office, with 2 offices. I was my own hygienist for the first 6 months. I had 0 patients when I started. My first day, it was my mom and my dad, my aunt and 2 cousins. Nobody wanted to pay full price. The second day, I had a first full-fledged patient from my church, and still a patient to this day. But that's how I started, and I started very modestly. I started by even templating and blocking my schedule. Dude, this is what I need. I don't know how long it's going to take me to do this new patient exam or cleaning with this, When I was in dental school, we weren't digital at all. My first day of digital practice was my first day in office. And so, some of that I didn't know. But what I tried to do was to understand I'm going to have a bit of limits, give myself some buffers, understand that it's probably not going to be the most productive day financially, but I want to make it the most productive day clinically and mentally that I can from a growth standpoint. As a practice as a whole, one of the things that we've done is, when my staff's heard me say this a dozen times a bit, is that we will not expand or we will not add a treatment room until we can efficiently manage the ones that we have going at the time. I don't want to add a 16th op and just make it an extra waiting room, because that's all it is. And so it's being, I guess, to sum it up, being okay to understand that I'm slow at first because I have an end inside. And that would be one of the biggest things that I would urge everyone to understand, is that day one, I may want to go out and kill it. And eventually that will happen, but be okay with maybe not doing that. I would have an end game of a long term in mind. I get it, there's pressures out there, student loans and life and everything, and figuring it all out. You got to produce day one. It depends on the arrangements, whether you're a practice owner, associate, or corporation, or whatever. There may be some obligations, but it is something to know. It's a very important question. At what rate are you going to be allowed to grow? For instance, in our practice of associates that I've had, we tailor ourselves to getting that support system where it's okay. Listen, if you need a couple hours for this, it would just maybe take me 30 minutes. That's okay for right now, because I know what we're going to get to, right? And it's making sure we have the support to do that. But that's how I've done it. Started super slow, super small, and have just been blessed.
Before I answer your question, I'm also going to give a real life excuse, because I think it probably happens to all of us today. The easiest patient that you think you're going to do a occlusal filling on 19 can take you 30 minutes, and then on the next one it takes you 5. It doesn't matter. Even to this day, for some reason, someone's more complicated than the other, and you never know why it took you longer than the other. So if you're wondering about your speed, sometimes it's person dependent, not necessarily clinical experience dependent. Someone might be a chatterbox and the other one just wants you to get the work done, So what I would like to say is that sometimes when you are leaving dental school, you just have to know and accept the fact that you're slow. Because being in denial is holding you back. The second part of that is you have to give yourself permission to grow. And I also think that coming from UK and having the 2 patients, you're never in a rhythm or a clinical rhythm or a repetition where you can gain speed. It's purposely holding you back in that fashion. And so when you start getting out in the real world and like working on your own patients, repetition does increase speed naturally. So the more reps that you're doing, the quicker you're gonna get, the easier it gets, the more flow you're gonna get, and it just all starts flowing, and all of a sudden you realize that you just did something and knocked it out of the park in 30 minutes and you didn't even know, right? And so something like that is so easy, and I'm just talking just from a fillings perspective. And then there are days where you've known someone the same way 50,000 times, and then all of a sudden they just don't get known. And you're like, what did I do wrong? And then you realize it's a full moon and it has nothing to do with what you did. So then, it just doesn't matter in terms of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And other times it's stick with what you know and go back to what you know. The beauty of dental school is it gives you a lot of tools, you don't always use it. So as long as you keep refreshing those tools, you may have to turn back and use that hammer that you never used before until today. But speed comes with time, and I always say that consistency leads to less mistakes. So the more consistent you can get in your routine and what you're doing and how you're doing it, the less mistakes you're gonna make, and the quicker you're gonna get.
Sorry, I don't want to be that guy. There's also a strategy that I took on too that has worked for me, is that you probably feel pressured, like even just hearing some of this talk right now, I was like, man, I should probably be doing that, or maybe I should do that, but I've taken my CD and my training almost in blocks. And I didn't try to do everything day one. It's like coming out the first few years, I said, I'm gonna totally immerse myself in the business aspect of dentistry. I have a grasp on that. The next 3 to 5 years was CAD CAM dentistry. I'm totally gonna immerse myself in the CERAC, CAD CAM, milling, design. After that, it turned to, now what I'm going to? Complicated reconstructive surgeries, aesthetics. Now I'm in a perio and implant phase. And so for me, there's so much that everybody up here is doing maybe differently. Feeling the pressure sometimes of the industry from everybody down the street who's doing all this stuff, text your picture, do what I did, doing that. For me, it was kind of, okay, sit back, I'm gonna stay in my lane, I'm gonna try to get this down and then move on. And I think we just kind of added layers as we went, tried not to do it all day.
I would say your speed will, for the most part, naturally come as you learn more and get out of school, get in your zone of comfort. But one thing that we haven't talked about yet is investing in your staff, whether you're an associate or an owner. Your staff can make or break you your every day. So that's one thing that's always been really important to me, to invest in them, to get to know them. I have a sense of responsibility to basically kind of take care of them like I would my family. But to be honest, that's one of the biggest reasons I left the DSO that I worked for. I worked for them part-time for 10 years. Because they did not value their staff, and in turn led to tons of staff turnover over and over and over. So I dealt with that, trying to practice the way I wanted to, having new assistants come in all the time, having to train them over and over and over. And that can definitely slow you way down. And not only investing in them, but also, I have a couple of edits now that have been in practice longer than me, 20, 25 years, and I value their opinion very much. I've been in practice 18 years, and one in particular, the one Chris is talking about, I learn new things from her all the time. So to have that relationship with them where, I respect what they do is hard. We sit down and we drill, and I leave the room. They're the ones that are in the nitty-gritty of it, so I think that's a really important part of it also.
So, a little bit of hindsight as to why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm kind of an all gas, no brakes kind of guy. That's just always been how I've been. If I'm going to do something, I'm going all in. And sometimes to a fault, especially in investment strategies. Can I get it in? So I am not a traditional, just graduated student. So I'm married for 13 years. We have 5 children. Had 4 children in dental school, and the 5th came right after we graduated. So when I started my practice and bought it, we had 5 kids. And my wife does dermatology, so she was kind of holding it down while I was in school. But the whole goal was to get to a place where she could then be with the 5 kids, and I would be kind of leading the charge. So my first year, it was like, make it or break it kind of thing. Like it was like, we're in it, like I'm all gas, no brakes. There's no defense, it's all offense. And I think an offensive mindset is a really safe mindset, honestly. I don't think you should. You can learn a lot, let's say it a different way. There's obviously a risk to going all gas, no brakes. And you need to know that like sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And especially not in patient care, like that's totally different. You know, you obviously have to keep things safe. But putting systems around you that work, and I mean, I know somebody said blocking scheduling. Like these schedules are there for you to understand that, you know, it's really once you're in it, it's time is money, not what I mean indirectly what you're doing. But the more that you can do in a short amount of time, you know, obviously that changes your numbers. But for me, when I came out, you know, I didn't really have an option. And to be completely honest, the last 2 years have been a big blur. It's just like, man, it pushed me in ways that I never thought it would. And especially because I have a lot to take at home. I don't know, I just kind of put my head down. And keeping the team around you, to her point, of I knew I was coming in with a ton to learn. So I specifically hired kind of OG hygienists, Eddas who have been doing it 10 to 15 years, you know, people who had a lot of ground underneath them, because I knew I needed them to carry me for the first couple of years. And that's exactly what's happened. I mean, I think it's been in the areas that they have helped me in dentistry. I think the culture that we've developed and really taking care of our team. And if you ever come to my practice, you're going to hear me say it's not patients first, it's team first. And because if you don't take care of your team, you're not going to see the patients, everybody's going to leave. So once your team like really understands that you're for them, like your ability to grow is so high. Like it's like the word of mouth, you know, except in your culture and your practice. So being strategic about how you hire is a really big point. And if you come into a practice that has kind of an OG matriarch or patriarch in that space, you need to first assess whether they're there to help you or challenge you. Challenge you in the sense that they're always trying to show that they're the one who always wants to be at the helm. If they want to be at the helm, you're the owner, and you need to just let them go. However, if somebody's there and they really do want to help you, and they're there to like support you, they could be your greatest resource, whether that's an office manager, another associate, or an owner that wants to stay for a year. That can be tricky, but if you find a really good one, it will skyrocket you.
And again, I love hearing all four of their answers, because back to the industry, there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat and 1,000 different ways to run a business. Staying on the staff thing, I don't think this is too personal, but like bad staff to good staff, I mean, you doubled your income, right? Yeah. So in less than a year, making really good money, doubled it just in. I mean, luck, hard work, all this stuff, but that's what the staff can't do.
And I didn't change the dentistry.
Yeah, I mean, she's crazy. As far as runs wide open, right? That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that in a very complimentary way. But so right now, I think we've got 5 new graduates working with us. And so just like looking at the 5 of us versus the 5 of them, everybody's so different. I know, you know, my brother Patrick graduated from UK a couple years ago. Patty Ice. So Patrick, again, Patrick comes out, I love Patrick. Super smart, hits the ground running, he's killing it. But we've got 4 other people that aren't exactly like Patrick, so it's how do we, you know, on our end, I'm looking at how do I provide mentorship, how do I provide patience, how do I provide guidance, handhold, not handhold. Everybody's different. What I think was, like, I'm trying to think back when I got out of school, and I'm pretty annoying. I'm calling people, and I might call him. We might not have the same, I know I don't have the same practice philosophy as all these guys. So I'm, okay, hey, I love you, I'll take the advice, I'm gonna move on. And you end up, I've got 3 or 4 friends who all got the same kind of vision, the same kind of way we run things. and really use them as resources as you grow.
Really appreciate it. Just a couple more questions here, and then we'll open it up to our students. One thing that obviously is facing our students right now is the extreme amount of student loans that they're getting themselves into, headed into getting this dental degree. What insight can you give not only about what philosophy you have as far as tackling student loan, but how do you balance the student loans, buying into a practice, getting your first home maybe coming out of school? How do you, or what resources have you all utilized to kind of factor and juggle all these different pretty big financial decisions you have to make maybe in a short period of time following graduation?
And he said it earlier, like keep the long-term goal in mind. When I was a fourth-year dental student, I didn't realize how great a profession there was, nor how much money you could make if you want to in the profession. Me personally, if I was giving advice, I'd say, hey, you get out, student loans, back burner. Like you need to, like first, second, third priority is your career. If you want to buy an office, buy an office. Get to where you need to go professionally first. Then comes a house, then comes student loans. Again, not for better or for worse, I got out of school, put student loans on a 7-year payment plan, and they paid off in a month or two. Just forget about it. It comes down to, like you were talking about, business planning, tax planning, what's the interest rate, where's your money best spent? I think you need to do a relatively deep financial dive on, how much stuff you got moving and shaking, but for me it'd be business, then personal, and then priority number 73 is student loans. If you can tackle them, great. If you want to pay them off, great, but I would figure out everything else first.
To that point, I think that there is like a rhyme and a reason of how you should go about financial stuff and how you should go about establishing certain debts at certain times. I say on long gas, no brakes, but one of my big prayers this whole last 2 years has been in your time and your way for your name and your glory. And there is a timing to everything. And sometimes pride, greed, all those things try to come in and actually ruin a really good thing. So you really have to be patient, but always ready to pounce. And there's certain seasons of when you should flip certain switches, specifically in the practice or even in your personal life, I was talking with a friend. If you're willing to live in a double wide for a couple of years and just crawl out of it, more power to you. Like, it's really up for what you're, my situation was way different. I had 5 kids, they would like, hey, if my wife was down, I would consider it. You can drastically change your financial projection. Dave Ramsey has a lot of good just basic stuff for you to understand as far as how to go. But even getting back to the team, getting a really good consultant, getting a really good CPA, these people are going to help show you the rails. Now, you always want to be dangerous enough to know when they're way off. But, hopefully you've talked with enough people and gotten enough background information about why they're part of your team or your board, however you want to perceive it.
I'm still paying on my student loans, and I will be even when I have kids in college. So I've got 4 kids, almost 2 are 16, and I kind of agree with Chris. If you come out of school, find your passion, find out exactly what you want to do, you are going to get to the point where you can pay those off. So I would try to figure that out first. Personally, I have always seen Medicaid my whole 18 years. When I started up my office, that was 16 years ago. I do think it's a very easy way to get busy as you want to be. So if you're looking at how do you make the most money in the fastest time, and you're willing to work very hard, and most of Kentucky is an underserved area, it's a good way to get busy. It's a good way to improve on your skills, and it's a good way to help the community. So if you're open to that, it's a great way to practice that.
I just
just realized I really didn't say anything about student loans. So let me just say this. I came out, everything was in full deferment, no interest. So literally they said I didn't pay a dime. Like Biden just helped us out. And they're just got a letter like last month that I don't have to make any payments, but they're gonna start gaining interest again. So we're figuring out kind of my game plan of how we're gonna go about it. So my like student loan situation, I don't know what it'll be, you know, legally and from a tax perspective when you guys come out as far as the political side, but my student loans have been pretty sweet actually. Like they're just sat there. I haven't really done anything to it.
And again, not trying to get too personal on anything, but like I think Sarah, you say you're still paying on your student loans. You make enough in the next 2 or 3 months, you could pay them off if you want to.
Yes.
It's all a comfortable level of leverage. So for me, 35, hungry, like I've got no gas on brakes, is that what it is, right? Like I'm going to leverage as much money as any bank will lend me, right? And it's fine. We've got 5 or 6 commercial, you know, we've got $10 million in commercial real, right? It's the what level are you comfortable with? If you're risk adverse, that's fine. Pay off your student debts instead of paying 6% interest. If you're really hungry and want to leverage your income versus borrowing power, that's the way to. Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna be the realist in the room here. Does anyone know what leveraging the building or your debt means? Like, I think that starts now, like, you know, when you graduate, you start learning these words and techniques and whatever that goes along with that, because I sure as hell didn't know that in 4th year. So what that means, let me put this into terms for the 4th years here, is sometimes debt is good debt, right? And student loans is what we call good debt, because that shows promise and potential, and you can earn more money sometimes, like in 2 months, where you can pay off your student loans if you wanted to. Oftentimes, many people use their leveraging skills, which is if they own the building or so forth, and use bank money so that they don't have to put their own money and pay taxes on it. Did I get all that right? Yes. Perfect. It took me 7 years to learn that, so I just want you all to realize that I gave you the dumb version of it. I think the best way that I can tell you about student loans and debt is that debt is always going to be there. You should probably start feeling comfortable with the amount of debt that you're gonna have. Whether it's a house mortgage, whether it's student loans, whether it's a new car, your car's gonna break down one day, you're probably gonna need a new car. It's an inevitable part of life at this point, and I wish someone told me that you just need to be comfortable with bigger numbers. And the funny thing is as I've gotten older, I've gotten more and more comfortable with bigger numbers. I've always been a proponent, and I say this to this day, and I'm sure, is Don Brown still part of the school? Oh, that breaks my heart. Okay, well, I don't know if he's reiterated this to you, but he always says live within your means. And that is so true, because if you can live within your means, then, you know, if you had to, in 2 months, pay off your student loans or pay off a debt so you can gain cash flow in some form or fashion, or sell off a building or two, it would not be a problem, right? But you shouldn't have to sell off all the things that you work for to make your life go on. You want to set yourself up for success. And I think the best way to go about it is make sure that you're making sound, consistent financial decisions. And the only way that I can assure you that you're doing that is to keep yourself in check. That's an accountant, that's a lawyer, that's tax planning, financial planning, whatever it may be. And yeah, we're broke and poor when you're graduating, but I promise you, people are there to help you. Mentors are everywhere. You just have to find the right people that have your value.
All things being considered, always bet on yourself. Okay? Like, I would tell you to look to yourself first. Like, if you're motivated, if you're skilled, I mean, everyone's going to leave this university with a skill set, a talent level, something that you can personally leverage to gain whatever financial rewards that means. Then you can use those, like they said, to leverage that against each other. I'm going to tell you, kind of, I'm sitting on the other side for a second. So I've been fortunate enough to serve on one of our local bank boards for a while. And I've sat in the meetings and I've heard the discussions, right, about people who've sat on the other side of the table asking for money to start up a practice or a home or whatever. And I'm gonna tell you what I've heard over the years is that dentists are a safe bet. Okay? You're not gonna have a problem, shouldn't have, if you do, call me, we'll take care of it. I don't get money for that. You shouldn't have a problem being able to pursue your dreams, just finding that right person to do it. So I remember when I started, I didn't have a song of prayer. In fact, we were in a negative situation because I had student loans to start with. FYI, by the way, so I was way back before all these high interest rates launched in. And I think my student loans, I'm still having them, by the way. I'm 23 years in. My daughter and son will, it's my daughter Anna, she's a third year week. Sorry. Anyway, they'll have their student loans paid off before I would. But mine were such a low interest rate, it made more sense for me to then apply whatever excess I had for other things and just leverage that and move that. And by the way, interest is tax so it's not as expensive as you think. With that all being said, the banks are telling me on this side, the bank side, the dentists are safe bet, we want to invest in that. And there are actually some programs that was a program started by our local bank that specifically targeted young professionals that would actually help kind of umbrella it all together. Home, student loans, practice loans, whatever. And made it easy because they basically said, we want to see these people as rock stars in our community and they know they're going to be for the next however many years, if it's a short term or if it's a long term. But what they do know, being in the business side of it, is this first initial loan stuff is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. You know, it's the practice loans and the home loans and the next practice loans and the second or third home loans or vacation homes. That's when they're really going to make money. It's not the first one. So don't, always bet on yourself and don't be afraid to go sit across the table from some bank examiner or some bank and say, this is what I need, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I feel like I'm worth, and I'd like for you to be a part of it for my journey. You might be surprised what they would say. Because they realize they're leveraging their money too, right? They're leveraging what they're going to lend out in order to make money in the back end. There's not much of a safer bet than dentistry, FYI. So bet on yourself. And then timing, right? If you're looking at timing and paying off stuff, it's just figuring out the numbers and crunching the numbers. Debt can actually be a producer. It can be an extra operatory, which produces. The debt itself can produce. It's a tool. I use it as a tool. But you have to be able to sometimes just lay your head on the pillow. And I realize I got 5 kids or 2 kids, a family, 100 employees, 20 employees, that this goes south, then that's on me. But that's just part of me, whatever. There's room for everyone in that.
Just on the bank thing again, I'm on a bank board back home too, and while banks just continuing on. So dentists buying your first office, you've got a less than 1% default rate for banks, which means it's really, really tough to screw it up. So bet on yourself, like he was saying. Banks like you, not because they like you, but because you're a safe play. And it's something I wish I knew right out of school too. So being local bank in Somerset, local bank back in Elizabethtown too. Not that we spilled that drink. Big banks. I do a lot of stuff with Bank of America, US Bank, PNC. They've got dental specific divisions. So instead of right now, banks are lending at 6.75, 7. You can get 2 interest points better at one of these dental specific lending. So a lot of my stuff is 2.99, and so the interest rates are 2 to 3 points better, and they're fixing these terms for 10 years, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it translates to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they'll approve you 100% financing. So, yeah,
It's a rigged system, but it's in your favor.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody that.
It is a rigged system, which is kind of frustrating. I mean, it's like, are you gonna figure this out and talk to the right people? Because just one move, like moving your LLC to an S corp, like it's just, the tax savings are just silly. And you think about how many practices there is in LLC right now, so an S corp election. I want to talk about my double wide one more time, okay? I think part of this thought is think outside the box, okay? You guys really have to look at things as, yes, there's always a traditional way to buy a practice, but you could also sell or finance a practice. Maybe this dentist is in a really good spot, has everything paid off, is looking for a little bit of a lend, and you can walk right into a practice, not have to worry about a bank at all, and they'll sell or finance it to you at a really good rate because they want to see you succeed or something like that. The other thought is, most of you guys live together, right? As far as like three people in an apartment or something like that. Either way, if I were you and I was a D1, this is one of my thoughts about like how to get ahead, take a little less loan out. Buy a double wide, okay? Buy a double wide your first year. 3 people go together or something like that. You guys will spend way less on your rent income. You'll have an asset by the time you're a 4th year, and you'll sell that off, have way less loan, and you get a little more savvy. It's just one of the thoughts of like, if I could go back and really, make it happen. Doubtful I would have got my 4 kids in the double wide, but you guys are similar. I mean, especially the guys that are willing to do it. Like, hey, go in for it, get you a little a spot at the trailer park. Could you imagine the times? I mean, it'd be like the best of times for a winter. Isn't that fun? I think that'd be fun. Can you speak on that?
I can't. My dad's a physician. That's what he did. My mom's never forgiven him.
Never forgive it. Well, yeah, maybe don't be married to it.
How many physician kids did they raise?
Awesome. So this is our last question here, and then we'll open it up to students. It's kind of a 2-part, but you can just kind of sum up. What would you say is the greatest thing about being a general dentist? And where do you all see the future of dentistry going the next 5, 10, 15 years, as far as what insight do you all see day to day as far as this is probably the next innovation, the next thing we should look at? For instance, I know bringing in dental anesthesiologists to keep a lot of surgical things in-house. We hear a lot about that, but how realistic is that right now in the market? Clear aligners, using CBCTs for certain procedures. What are you all seeing that you really think is going to pop in the next 5 to 10, and what do you all love the most about being a general dentist?
Me and Sarah talked about it. I still think general dentistry in general is the best profession out there. Just like we've all alluded to, Dr. Patel as well. Whether you want to work for somebody, whether you want to work for yourself, whether you want to work 6 days a week, 2 days a week, whether you want to do all sorts of procedures, stick to the bread and butter, you can do whatever you want. So the flexibility is incredible. The progress, like Ricky was talking about, you're constantly learning and doing things you enjoy and pushing yourself. Again, I don't think there's a better profession out there. As far as what the future holds, I think like everything else in the world, AI is wild right now. We're trying to implement it as much as we can. Obviously, it's everywhere with X-ray diagnosis, but everything from answering our phone systems to running all our P&Ls to accounting to insurance verification and insurance processing. Trying to use that tool, which again, whether that's dentistry or anything, I think it's the wild card in the room.
Hello, y'all. My first thought is I really like to bet on yourself. General dentistry is such a really wide open, you can make it whatever you want. Like, just for example, I'm a huge family guy, obviously. I've now changed my hours from 7 to 3, and I work 4 days a week. So you can imagine mornings, getting out of the house with 5 kids is already interesting. It's even more interesting in the afternoon when they come home from school. So I just have to tailor my practice to what life allows. And that's the beauty, that you literally can just make it whatever you want it to be. And I would say even in the high times, low times of the economy, like, general dentists are still at the helm. Like, you're kind of at the ship. It's not like teeth are going anywhere. I mean, if anything, it's probably going to increase because people are going to be grinding their teeth. The reality is, like, you can tailor this.
You've been cut off.
Yeah.
All to say, I think it's a really, really great industry, and
in regards to where I think dentistry is going, like you said, a lot of the systems that are coming out now, we're implementing a really cool system right now that basically uses AI to listen to every interaction in the maze, and we have kind of system auto notes already populated, and they just click on that and it listens to the whole appointment and basically writes them. So, DNTAI. Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits to that too, as far as recording things and liability and all that kind of stuff. But that place alone, the time amount that's going to be saved by using AI, the X-ray AI, it's a huge teaching tool for me. I would say, not only do they have data analytics that are behind it that'll basically tell you how much you're missing or what you're not doing, but it really helps the patient know like what they're seeing, and talking about. They're like, man, I've never even heard or knew that this was like what you guys were doing. So AI is a huge tool, and I would say in addition to that, the next piece, I'm sorry if it's doing that, but the next piece is digital printing with resins. That game is just getting started, and when you can print all on X, zirconia inlay printer in 6 minutes, I mean, it's a game changer. So there's a whole nother resin game, I think, coming in regards to how you can do dentistry and your lab bills and what you can start to keep in-house versus you couldn't before.
Mine's basically the same thing. As far as one of the best things about dentistry is the flexibility, especially during the different phases of life. Being parents too, when my kids were little, it gave me the flexibility to work part-time, accommodate my hours where they were kind of condensed. There's not a whole lot of professions where you can do that when you're in the different stages of life. So I'd say that's one of the best things. And then AI for sure. It's definitely a game changer with educating patients. I use it on the x-rays all the time for that. And then experimenting with different ways that we can use it across our 7 locations. I think especially with the larger type of practices, integrating the AI where we can create systems among the different practices that help us on the back end, especially with insurance, is going to be really key in the future.
I think the greatest thing about dentistry is just the relationships that you build in general, not just amongst your peers, your reps, your agents. I mean, the ability to send a text to someone and say SOS is pretty amazing. I probably could say that there's a handful of people that I could do on any given day and be like, hey, what do I do here? Or what's this new material out there? Can you figure it out? Or whatever it may be. You not only watch families grow, not just your team's family grow, but your patient's family grow. You help people feel relaxed and comfortable. I also think the autonomy, the financial stability it brings, the ability to say, hey, I want next Friday off, blah, 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 and magically it just happens because they actually do your patients. It's amazing. The part of the future of dentistry that I think is going to be interesting is I've always been told, that maybe because I practice in California, is if you're trying to venture out and do things, you want to make sure that it's as good as a specialist, right? So I feel like when you're practicing in some form or fashion, if you want to venture out and do something, like you should probably be as good or on the same caliber as your oral surgeon, as your endodontist, as your prosthodontist, whatever it may be. And that may be the cone beam world, the scanning world, the 3D printing world, whatever it may be. But I always think the best thing that you can always tell yourself in terms of the future of dentistry is it's always evolving. There's always a new material. There's always something new. Just stay humble and be curious.
So, for me, I love dentistry for 2 reasons. Because it helps me and it helps other people at the same time. The way that I practice, and you said the same, like, you can make your days what, within, I mean, it depends on your situation and your practice, but if you're, the situation I'm in, the scene I'm in, I can pretty much pick and choose. If I wanted to take off last week, it's in real time. Go to Florida, watch my son play baseball, spend some time with my daughter at the beach, I can do that. I can call Sunday night and say, hey, we're still playing, and I'm not making it back for 8 a.m. Monday morning patient, and it'll be 1 o'clock. They move some stuff around. It gives me a little bit of leeway for my own life. It helps me. Dentistry is just part of who I am, just part of what I do. I'm very passionate about spending time with my family, hobbies, chilling out, fishing, going for a run, food, adventure, and it affords me the time and the money to be able to do it, quite frankly. But it also affords me the gratification at the end of the day to know I just helped somebody. And whether it's that teenage girl who broke the front tooth, a volleyball accident, and I put it back together, now she can go get her senior pictures made, it's a good day. Or if it's the older man who came in, who's got 3 abscesses, and he just had a second heart valve replaced a few months ago. He's totally unaware of any dental issues. I don't know how that slipped through the 3 offering, or whatever. Good luck. But it's fine in that situation to know that, okay, maybe we just saved this guy's life, in a sense. I would refer him out, but those things, like, you know, I leave at the end of the day knowing at some point we touch somebody today in a way that their life's better because of it, even if it's something just a little simple. But it helps me make my life better as well. As far as the future of dentistry, man, I'm blown away by what technology does all the time. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, if I could have said we would have had stuff that could, you know, stand in and read all my x-rays for me and tell me exactly what I'm looking at, and then have me verify and then get smarter as the day goes by because we've got 300 different offices around the state looking at the same thing, and it's getting more intelligent. I would have known that it existed. So I have no idea to tell you what we're going to have in 10 years. But I tell you what we won't have, okay, not in my practice, is we won't have a robot that sits in my chair. And we won't have a robot that answers my phones and talks to my patients. Because I will tell you right now, my staff hears me say this a lot, we don't sell teeth, we don't sell dentistry, we sell trust. And if I can't sit chair side and talk, need an eye to eye with my patients and understand where they're coming from, it doesn't really matter how good my CBCT just is if I can't explain to them why this tooth is in the shape it is, how this is impacting their daily life. So whatever comes along with technology, and whatever comes down the pipe and new materials or whatever, I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Can't wait. But I hope we as a profession don't ever lose sight of the fact that one of us has to push that button. And at the end of the day, the patient really needs to feel trust in what we have to say, regardless of what level of technology we have. So, you guys are the future, really. You guys are the future of dentistry. I'm in the back end of time, hopefully. I love what I do. People ask me that all the time, how long are you going to be in? I don't know. Until they kick me out, probably. But I think we're talking to the future. You just be the one that uses whatever tool came out with next.
What questions do we have for our panel here? We'll open it up. Anyone have any specific questions? And I'm sure they're willing to hang around for 5 or 10 minutes after if you want to talk to them individually. But what questions or things from what they've talked about just in general? Does anyone have anything right now? Yes, any?
What do you expect, those of you that have associates or have hired them, what do you expect from them from the beginning? Whether it's like procedure-wise or other things?
For me, I expect that there's really good people, okay? Like, be good to the staff, be good to the patients, respect each other, all right? And have a work ethic that says, I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And if that feeling took forever today, it'll take a little less time tomorrow. That's me.
Same. I think it's always quality over quantity. Everybody's different. Get out. Hey, I'm merely a resource to our job as, you know, if we have associates, is I wanna give you the patient flow you need, I wanna give you the facilities you need, and the staffing you need to be successful, but, hey, you're not rushed, there's not quotas to hit, you just, hey, let's be quality first, and then we can worry about the quantity.
Can I answer that question as an associate once upon a time? Okay. I think that you need to realize that you need to find the right environment for yourself as an associate. You're gonna kiss a lot of bad frogs. There's a lot of associates out there that aren't great, right? That don't sit well with you. The pay may look great, but you don't know what the schedule's like, and it doesn't work for you. I think that being in San Francisco, I had an owner doctor once tell me that this is a dog-eat-dog world, and that was scary as could be as a first-time associate. And when something rubs you the wrong way, you really need to just trust your gut instinct. And someone once told me that your instinct speaks in statements, your anxiety speaks in questions. So if you're questioning yourself about something, that is a different tool than what your instinct's telling you. If your instinct's telling you to run, get the fuck out. Sorry. Sorry, didn't mean to say that. But I really do believe in that as an associate. No, it's real, and I'm saying that. And also, I think as an associate, you worry about money a lot. Money will come, and I say that, just be patient with yourself. Money will come. Debt is always gonna be there, but money will always come as long as you're building your strengths and you're genuinely learning and growing. You won't see growth in a month, but you'll see growth in 6. It's amazing.
I would say too, like from an owner perspective, and I would say this in general, as a factor, the way I look at things, I would be more focused on long-term wealth than I would be focused on a paycheck. Okay, so, but as an owner, if it's a proper owner mindset, they should also be thinking that way too. So when I'm thinking investing in people, that's fine, whatever it is, whatever production is in October of 2025, what it's gonna be in 26, 27, or next quarter. I don't mind a short-term gain, but the long-term is more about building wealth than it is just cash and paycheck. So if you have a good environment and a right-minded ownership,
You'll just grow naturally.
yeah.
You'll be able to tell though, like, when you go into that place, unfortunately, you can't really like vibe check the culture a ton. When you get in there, you'll know if the person at the helm is 4 people and your staff, like, it'll
How
be
long do you
really-
think that takes? A month? I would say a month is a good
It'll just
check.
take one employee just being like, hey, I really like you, like, I just want you to know like what's happening. And you'll start to see it play out, and hopefully you can kind of hear it in the team meetings. I think that's usually a lot where a person is leading the culture. Like I tell my team almost every day, this is just dentistry. People matter. Like, this is just dentistry. It's gonna move on without us. As soon as we retire, then the next round. But having that culture check, you'll know really quick. And unfortunately, and this is nothing against DSOs, but I think they have gotten probably the most light shown on them as far as cultures that can, or models that can be incorrect. And that's not to say that it can't go the same way if you're just with like a sole doc and they think that you're a slave. But hopefully you can kind of see that before you get into this. I'd say the DSO is probably hard.
I was at a course one time and the guy talking was worth a couple $1 billion, big dental guy, and they asked him what the most important, like how does he make big decisions? And as what you said is always trust your gut. And if you don't know what your gut's telling you, trust your wife's gut because it's never wrong.
Amen.
For that. So yeah, I think trusting your gut's a big thing. I think at this point, and again, I think small office, big office is all good stuff. We've got over 100 employees, and I've had to fire 2 people in 8 years, and that's not kudos to anything, but we've interviewed hundreds of people, and like I might disagree a little bit. I think instead of taking weeks, I can meet a lot of times you can meet people, and sometimes you don't know, but a lot of times you meet people, you're like, I like you. Interview, this isn't even an interview, like page, I don't know you very well, like, I like you, you come work for us, right? But you can tell, like, hey, I don't care for someone like her, like, you're a good person, you're easy to talk to, I know you're smart, you'll be successful anywhere.
There's a
And-
saying, I think, amongst people where it's like, hire on character, not on skills. You can build skills, but you can't build character.
My brother also went, not Patrick, other brother went through a deep dive on how gut feelings actually are like future thoughts coming back to you via time travel. So if anybody wants to go down that rabbit hole, feel free. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, what other question? I saw Elijah had one here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, knowing what you guys know, would you recommend doing an acquisition or a startup?
I think your 0 to 60 with an acquisition is way quicker. Not that you can't do it with a startup, but I would say your 0 to 60 with a startup would probably be way quicker, way faster after you've done an acquisition. So it's not to say you couldn't do a startup, but your 0 to 60, a lot of the system and plug and play is already there. Like, you're gonna have a lot more road to run if you let it do a startup and you're just fresh out.
Have you ever been location dependent?
I think location matters. With an acquisition, I think the big thing is whether you're starting with, like when we're looking at offices, like main thing, location matters, number of operatories matters, like how many people you got in hygiene matters to me. Because that's revenue day one, versus startup, if you're lucky, you're getting 50 to 100 new patients a month. It's gonna take you a year to be big enough to get and again, not that there's a right way or wrong way. I think both have pros and cons, and both can be important, but.
For me, I would really have to analyze both sides of that equation. So for instance, if I were looking at option A as startup from scratch, and I have total control of that day one overhead. If I look at acquisition, option B, if I'm acquiring, I've got a deep dive on the data and all their backlogs, 3 years or whatever, P&L statement, whatever. I'm assuming that's overhead. Well, what happens if I acquire that practice? Is their greatest asset leaving? Like, are you taking it over and then the asset that created that production is you've just bought out? So then, in a sense, that overhead becomes dramatically different day one than what would be in a startup. So I think you really have to look at, like, I've been in a position where we've done both. So I've started and I've acquired 3 practices as I'm along the way. It just depends on looking at what makes sense and really looking, can I provide that asset and not lose its soul when whoever's leaving or selling leaves? Because then that's a complete game changer. It's like losing your star player who scores you 40 points a night, and then it's like, okay, now I gotta make up for this when I'm maybe just the first year rookie in the league. And I'm not saying I couldn't, but it's a really broad statement. I like both ways, but it just depends on like demographics, where you're at. But for me, if I were looking at acquisition versus startup, one of the first things I would look at is, what's my day one overhead really gonna be if I acquire that? Am I able to do that same production? Is it the kind of culture? I mean, we're talking about culture a lot, but am I buying a shit culture? You know, am I gonna have to spend the next year and a half weeding out stuff to even get productive? Might just be easier to start my own.
There's a
And
tool,
then take the staff from that other acquisition, just recruit them over. I didn't say that.
there's a tool out there to speak on what he's talking about that gives you a demographic study if you're wanting to do a startup, which is really crucial because you need to know what your traffic flow is like, your presence is like, who's around you, what's around you, what do they offer, and I don't actually think it's expensive. I think it was like $200, and I paid for it. And I paid for like 5 locations that I was remotely interested in. And that helped narrow a lot of things down immediately. Like 2 of them were off the table. It was just, traffic is terrible. People can't come in and out. Like, you know, they're looking at things that you're not thinking of until it's almost too late. But I also think the part of if you're wanting an acquisition versus a startup situation, you wanna make sure that you, are prepared for what a startup world gives you. Your paycheck is later. Your paycheck is not immediately, right? And I'm saying this from my perspective. I did a startup in 2018, 15 months in, I got hit with COVID. So if you're looking for, what you would like to know or what you could endure, you would never imagine COVID. I could not imagine COVID. I kind of asked, and I remember saying this, and I was like, well, because I lived during a time of recession. My parents owned businesses, so I kind of knew what that was like for everybody. But I remember asking my parents, I'm like, well, if I make this decision, what if another recession happens, you know? And so lo and behold, we were shut down for 3 months, and like, that's something you can't account for. But do you make it? Do you survive? And the answer is yeah. And now, like, when something stressful's happened, the first thing I say is, well, if I can make it through COVID, I can make it through this. So it's all about perspective. But I do think that, like, in the terms of what we're saying about treating your team first, like, they come first. My paycheck's always been the last thing. So just remember, as an associate, it's a very different mindset versus an owner.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your all's time. Let's give them a hand for All right, so like I said, they'll stick around 5-10 minutes after if you just want to introduce yourself. The last thing of business here, we're going to give away those 2 Target gift cards. So Ben can come up and we'll do that. And then while he's doing that, also, you saw in the sign-in sheet today, position for officer. So all officer positions are actually coming open going into this next year. We're currently in a situation where we're going to be scheduling interviews for that. So if you, someone else, an active member in SDBO is interested, they can go through this link. We'll send something out in a group meet, and there will be an interview process to onboard onto that. So a really good opportunity to get involved behind the scenes with SDBO. So if you're interested in that, come up to us after the meeting or reach out to us. We can help set that up. All right, Ben's got this magic wheel, so we'll have him spin it and we'll give these 2 gift cards away. A little thing with these gift cards, when I went to buy these today at Target, they told me like 3 times, whoever wins this, make sure you don't tear the sticker off. It's a scratch off. They said if you rip the sticker off, it's no longer valid. So please don't tear the sticker off and try to go use it at Target. Just scratch it off and then you'll be able to use it. I just don't want someone to win it and not be able to use it. All right, our first winner here is Andrew Savage.
Yeah, you know where this is going.
All right, we got our last one here. Our last winner of the night is going to end up being Kevin Zhao.